Yesterday?
No, from yesterday in this class, I think I watched the video. I haven't watched the video for the other class.
Okay, you got to have to knock out both every day.
Yeah.
I know it's a little bit of work, but hopefully you find the information interesting, especially today in history. You guys remember when I did the whole thing, the road to 9/11? Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty good stuff. Yeah, I thought today's lecture went really well. So actually, I think I did better the second time, so I'm glad I recorded that one. So okay. Yesterday in this class, we're on page 7, and we got through welfare reform, okay? Yes? Okay. And listen, guys, I just want to be intellectually honest with you, right? Okay? I have my own beliefs, right? I have my own biases, my own opinions, right? And you guys have been around me long enough to kind of get a feel for who I am as a person. When I go over these topics, sometimes it's really hard to not to be, or hard to be unbiased. It's hard to be unbiased. You understand? On most of these, what I'm trying to do is give you both sides and kind of leave it open for you to just kind of see how you feel and give you, I like to use the term the devil's advocate, like, so, I give one, if a student says something to me and they have an opinion, sometimes I'll try and play the opposite side, even though I may not believe that. You know what I mean? So I hope I do a good job at that, guys. If you want to call me out on something, so Ebright, Mr. Ebright, I don't know if you were fair on that one. Okay, go ahead. Nobody's gonna hurt my feelings. I believe in free speech. I believe in opinions. I believe that people should not be afraid to speak their mind. Okay, because when we live in fear of opening our mouth, we're not free any longer. If we're going to get canceled for sharing our political opinion, I don't think that's the country we want to live in. You? It's not a rhetorical question. Okay. All right, so we're moving on to allow prayer in school, okay? Now, let me give you some history here, right? So historically, when, we had the colonies first, and then we had our declaration, and, we didn't have too many people living in this country, but there were big cities, like Philadelphia and New York and so forth, and then small towns that would have, one-room schoolhouses, yes? And you would have kindergarten through 12th grade in the same schoolhouse building, right, in a single room. What was the first textbook that they used in these classrooms in the United States? The Bible, yeah. And then a little bit later, they got a little bit better at it and started creating some more like textbooks. One of the earliest ones that we can trace back is called the New England Primer. Okay, and you can find copies of this, like on the Antiques Roadshow and stuff. But the words, the vocabulary words in this little textbook, this New England Primer, most of those words came out of the Bible. Okay, and there were Bible verses in there that teach you about virtue and right and wrong and stuff like that students would memorize as part of their education. Yes? So that tradition lasted quite a long time in the United States. Of course, once, we became more industrialized, you have textbooks, and you get all kinds of stuff going on, maths, geography, good stuff, right? But over time, the country began to change. And although, most of the people that came here early on were Christians, we also had some that didn't believe in God, or maybe in a Christian God, believed in God, but maybe not Jesus Christ. So you can take people like Benjamin Franklin. Okay, you refer to Franklin as a deist. Okay, maybe not a Christian. He believed in God, but maybe not in the story of Christianity. Okay, so you do have some diversity of opinion when it comes to religion. And as time goes on, that will certainly change more. Okay, so we need to talk about the First Amendment. Okay, in the First Amendment, there are 5 freedoms. The first one listed is religion. Okay? Then you have speech, then you have press, then you have peacefully assemble and to petition your government. Okay? 5 freedoms. It's a pretty good amendment. Okay? But the First Amendment has 2 clauses. The first says Congress shall not shall not establish a religion. Okay? This is called the Establishment Clause. So Congress shall not create a religion, nor prohibit the free exercise thereof. Okay, so you've got 2 clauses here. One that says Congress can create an official religion. Okay, now, the vast majority of Americans at this time, when they wrote the First Amendment in 1791, were Christian. Some were Catholic. Some were Episcopalian. Some were Protestants or Presbyterian, Methodist, Lutheran, Calvinist, so on. Okay? Guys, in some of the states, when we declared our independence from Britain, okay, in 1776, those 13 states or colonies became basically 13 different countries. The only thing holding them together was the Continental Congress in Philadelphia. There was no constitution until 1781, the Articles of Confederation. So you had 13 different constitutions ruling over 13 different countries. And in some of those state constitutions, guys, they had official state religions. You could not run for governor of this state unless you were an Episcopalian. You could not run for public office in this state unless you were a Quaker. You guys want to live in that country? No. So when they wrote the new Constitution and they put the Bill of Rights in there, they expressly said that Congress shall not establish an official religion. And thank goodness they did. Okay? Nor prohibit the free exercise, which means this is what we're doing right here, right now, is using the free exercise of religion. We formed a Catholic school together, your parents, the community. Actually, Bishop Carroll did. Okay? He started the Catholic school here. Okay? And the Catholic schools in the diocese, yes. Bishop Mark Carroll. All right? And we're allowed to do that. Guys, right stone's throw from my house. I live northeast. Okay? There is the a mosque Muslim school. Okay, you know the mosque there on K96 in Woodlawn? You ever drive over there? Okay, they have a school there where Muslims or even non-Muslims can send their kids to school. Okay, my kids went to Central Christian Academy at 29th and Rock, which is a Protestant school. Okay, non-denominational. Got some fundamentalists over there, you know what I'm saying about them fundamentalists? Okay, you got them. Yeah. You know this, I don't mean to bash on anybody, but yeah, this young earth theory, you guys know about that? Probably weren't taught that. Yeah. Which is okay. You don't really need to know about it, but know that some people believe it. So that the earth is like 6,000 years old. So science class, my son went through. It's kind of like religion class. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of Americans that believe that in the young earth theory. I'm kind of surprised you haven't heard of it. Okay. All right, look it up. All right. All right. Now, yeah, I don't tend to subscribe to that. Okay, even though I'm a Protestant, you know, not all Protestants believe that. Please understand, not all Protestants believe that. Now, it's the whole thing with evolution and so forth. Okay. All right, so we'll talk more about that later. All right, so this First Amendment. All right, I don't want to get too far off base here. Now, There was prayer in school in this country for more than 150 years. Okay? But things began to change. And there was a Supreme Court case in 1961. Now, let me be clear. If you are a student at Northwest High School right now, or at Mays High School, can you, in class, pray? Absolutely, you can pray. You just can't disrupt the class. You know what I mean? You can pray silently. I usually do pray silently when I pray. You know what I mean? So, but if you're not disrupting the class, you could be praying right now and I not know it. You know what I mean? So, it's okay. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have Bible clubs in public schools and stuff like that, as long as it's student led. Okay. Now, 1961, a Supreme Court case, Engel versus Vitale. The parents of 3 students in a New York City public school sued over the fact that they were doing a prayer, a Christian prayer, over the intercom in the morning. And students were expected to recite it. They won, the parents, okay? And they said, you can't do that. Public schools are funded by tax dollars. They're government schools. Government cannot promulgate, cannot evangelize, cannot create an official established religion. You with me? Now, I can see that, okay, where people might be offended. Now, in 2021, if you ask the American people, do you believe in God? What percentage of Americans do you think now believe in God? It's under 70%. You asked that question 30 years ago? I'll go 40 years ago. It was over 90%. Okay? We are changing rapidly. And we're very diverse. Of course, we have Buddhists, we have Hindus, we have Jews, we have Muslims, we have Catholics, Christians, we have atheists, growing number, okay? So if you were to bring prayer back into school, how would you do that? Is that even possible today? And most people say, no, it's not. Now, here's what Kentucky's doing. Kentucky is allowing elective religious classes in their public schools. So if you want to learn about Christianity, you can take it as an elective. It allows students to be exposed to it. Okay, here's the thing. Look at what's happened to our culture in the United States since the 1960s. I got 2 words for you. Jersey Shore. This is acceptable on television. Okay, in the 1950s, the #1 TV show was a show called Ozzy and Harriet. It was about a husband and a wife and 2 boys they had in their family. Black and white, okay? Ozzy and Harriet on the TV show were married in real life off the screen. But on the TV show, when they went to bed at night, this is in the mid-50s, Ozzy and Harriet slept in separate beds on TV because it was taboo to show a man and a woman in a bed together. We've changed. Okay? Our culture is not very clean. Yes, you see it all around you. Okay? People don't believe in God as much. You guys hear it all the time when you come to the dances. Ladies, dress modestly. Okay? My wife will get on my daughter if she's wearing something that you're not leaving the house like that. Okay? A lot's changed. Now, as a youngster, let me just tell you a little bit about myself, because you guys know I'm a Protestant, right? Now, when I was born, I was baptized in a Presbyterian church. Okay? When I was 3 years old, my dad said, we're not going to church anymore. So I knew nothing about God until my half-sister talked to me about him when I was like 13. Didn't really understand much at 13. And then I met a girl in college. And she happened to be a Presbyterian. And she started taking me to church. Okay? Now, as we Protestants talk about, I was saved. Okay? I asked Jesus to come into my heart. Okay? And save me. Okay? That's how we do it. And it changed my life. We ended up going to different colleges, and our relationship ended, but my relationship with God didn't. And I kept going to church and haven't stopped since. Okay? But when I was, 8th grade, 7th, 9th grade, 10th grade, I made some bad decisions. I did some bad things. And if there was a teacher there that could have taken me under their wing, and said, that cared about me, and said, Charlie, you're going down the wrong path here. Can I teach you about Jesus Christ? There's a difference between right and wrong, and you're on the wrong path. Can I show you the right path? How many lives could be changed by teachers? You guys seen these movies, God is Not Dead, God is Not Dead Too? You guys seen these? Okay, yeah, pretty good. They're kind of cheesy, but they're pretty good. God, I like the second one. Now, I have a very close friend of mine, one of my best friends. He teaches over at Northwest High School. He teaches government. His name is Tom O'Connor. Grace used to play softball for him in the summertime. Okay? He used to teach here right next door to me where Mr. Soares teaches. Mr. O'Connor, in talking to his government students, or any of his students, this is what I'm going to say to you. Pay attention. Premarital sex is a sin. It's against God's law. You're supposed to wait till marriage. You got it? Now, Mr. O'Connor can't say that to his kids. I can't. You understand? I can tell you the truth. Now, he can tell his students, here's the repercussions for premarital sex. 1, you can get venereal disease, okay? 2, you could get pregnant. And if you get pregnant, the chances of your child growing up to be successful in life are greatly diminished. Look at the statistics. Your life and your chances of being successful in life are going to be diminished as well, unless you wait for marriage. But if a student asks Mr. O'Connor, why is it wrong? Because he can't say it's wrong. He can say, here are the consequences, but he can't say it's wrong. Because if Grace asked me, Mr. O'Connor, why is it wrong to have premarital sex? He can't answer that question honestly. Because God said it is wrong. It is God's word. You following me? He cannot teach them the truth. And the truth is something that's lacking in this country. It's something our society dearly needs. The founders of this country, James Madison said it best. He said a Republican form of government can only exist with a religious people. Knock him down, girl. Yeah. Good luck. So when we lose our truth, we lose our way, society breaks down. Okay? So is there a way to bring God back into the public square? You may offend some people. 30 years ago, I would have said, yes, let's do it. If we offend 10% of the people, too bad. It's for the betterment of society. But we're looking at like 40% of the people. How do you do it? How do we as Christians help change our society to bring more people to God? Boy, it'd be nice if we could do it in the schools, if we could find a way. If you're for that effort, you'd like to see a way to try and do that, okay, then go ahead and say yes. if you think, that ship has sailed and you can't really do it without violating this, say no. Okay? All right, next one. 14-year-olds as adults. Okay, now guys, before you answer this is for violent crime. This isn't for shoplifting, okay, or minor possession or something like that. Okay, this is for murder, rape. That's about it, because that's the only time you're really going to get somebody charged as an adult. Okay, because it does happen. In fact, we have had people as young as 10 years old tried as adults. I picked 14 because it seems a little more sane. Some of you may not think that's sane, okay? But here's what the judge is going to want to know. Does this 14-year-old understand the consequences of their actions? Any of you guys have 14-year-old siblings? Okay. You guys are not too far removed from being 14. So, what happens if you charge a 14-year-old as an adult for murder? They go to juvenile hall, okay, like a juvenile facility, until they're 18. And then you transfer them to an adult prison for the remainder of their sentence. We do not put 14-year-olds in adult prisons. You understand? Okay, so you're not shipping them at 14, to Rikers or Leavenworth or El Dorado. Okay? Now, one of the problems we have in this country is we don't do a very good job of reforming our inmates. When you send a 14-year-old to juvenile hall, you're sending that child to a hall that is filled with a bunch of other criminal juveniles, putting them all together, which doesn't help. Okay? Same thing in our prisons. This is why prison ministries is, I feel, a very important mission. Okay? Because you can change people with God. You know what I mean? For sure. For eternity. Okay? But we don't do a very good job with this. So we have what's called very high recidivism rates in this country. The likelihood of you committing a crime and doing it again in this country are very high. People that go to jail once tend to go back. That could be, something about prison reform. Maybe we may need to make it a little more, less comfortable while you're there, and then maybe you don't want to go back. But anyhow, that's a whole nother thing. And we could do a better job at reforming our inmates, but we don't. Why? Because it's expensive. It's not a priority. Lock them up, throw away the key. Let's go. Get these violent people off the street. Now, let me give you a scenario, a hypothetical. You guys heard of the video game Grand Theft Auto? Yeah, it's pretty violent, isn't it, right? So you get a 14-year-old that plays Grand Theft Auto 3 or 4 hours a day. And then the new one comes out, Grand Theft Auto 2. Okay? How much that cost? $60. Kid doesn't have $60, but he thinks he knows how he can get it from watching the video game. So he gets a baseball bat, and he goes and hides by an ATM machine. And little old lady, little old grandma comes up to get some cash out of the machine. Now, wait a second. This is your grandmother. 14-year-old jumps out, bashes her over the head with a baseball bat. She falls, hits her head on the curb, and dies. He steals the money, goes by his game. Now, we're going to try this 14-year-old as an adult or a juvenile. Try him as juvenile. He goes till he's 18. He's back out. Trust that this kid will not do this to somebody else. Or do you lock him up? Okay, this is second-degree murder. He didn't plan to kill him. Okay, first-degree murder is premeditated. Think about it, you plan it, you carry it out. That's when you get the death penalty, depending on which state you're in. Okay. Second-degree murder, he could get 20 to 40. Maybe it's knocked down to manslaughter. It's 10. So he goes juvie till he's 18, does 10 more. The older you get, the less violent you tend to be. I can attest to this. To do something violently against any of you at this moment in time would cause me physical pain just carrying out that violence. My body would hurt in the commission of that crime. Okay? And I really don't want to feel pain. Okay? So I'm going to be I'm going to avoid conflict, physical conflict as I get older. You know what I mean? I don't really need that in my life. Like young people don't really give a crap sometimes. And so the older you are when you get out, the less violent you're likely to be. That's statistically true. Okay. So I don't know how you guys feel about this. Are you lock them up, throw away the key, turn the other cheek, forgive? Now, guys, we go pretty light on first offenders in this country. If you make a mistake, we tend to allow you to not make that mistake again and not throw away the key. Now, murder's different. You know what I mean? So, like, if you get busted for something and you do your probation, what have you, and you don't commit any more crimes, a lot of times they'll say that will be expunged from your record. You know what I mean? They won't, people won't know about it if you don't do it again. Does that make sense? And I like that, man. People are stupid, especially when they're young. They make mistakes. Okay? But when you kill and take somebody's life, or you rape somebody and take their innocence, that's different. What do you do with, we know what we do with an 18-year-old on that. You do the same thing with a 14-year-old. I don't know. You decide. Okay? All right. Limit the number of gun control laws. Fifth hour? Fifth? Okay, good. All right, now be careful on this one. It's worded funny, and you got to give me some time here. Okay? All right, first of all, let's start with guns. Guys, this is the Wild West. Welcome to the Wild West. Okay? Guys, during the pandemic and since the pandemic, guns have been flying off the shelves. You can't buy ammo in this country right now. It's so hard to get ammo for your guns because everybody's buying it up. What the heck is going on? Mr. Ebright, never been a hunter, okay? Never been a guy who went out and shot guns, never done anything like that. Never wanted to own a gun because I have kids in the house and I'm worried about my kids, okay? So I've never owned a gun until about 3 months ago. And when I went in and bought one, it was slim pickings. You know what I mean? There weren't a lot of guns available because they were flying off the shelves. This is the Wild West. There was a murder in South Wichita last night. Heard on the radio this morning. 1 dead, 1 arrested. 2 lives ruined. Probably carried out with a handgun, as most crimes are. Yes? Most gun crimes are handguns. They're easy to get. They're easy to conceal. And they're easy to use. Now, that being said, there's a lot of death in this country attributed to gun violence. But let's talk about the Constitution. The Second Amendment. Let me quote it for you. Ready? A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. Now, what's a militia? They wrote this again in 1791. Now, in 1775, when the British went to Lexington and Concord, who came out and stopped them? The militia. Everybody had a gun. Guys, during the colonial era, if you were a male in 12 of the 13 colonies, Pennsylvania the exception, you had to join the militia. You had to own a gun. You had to learn how to march and take orders. You'd meet at least once a month for muster days for the local militia. And during the Indian Wars, where the colonists had wars with Indians or Native Americans, you don't survive if you don't know how to use a gun. And we don't defeat the British without the militia. So when they put this in here, they said, yeah, well-regulated militia is necessity. Is a necessity of the security of a free state. So some people today say, well, that militia is the National Guard, the Kansas National Guard, which is made up of citizen soldiers. They're armed, not the individuals. But the other half of that says, the right of who? The people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So which is it, the National Guard or everybody? So there's a little bit of an argument there, okay? I'll tell you what the Supreme Court said in a minute. But let's talk about infringing on that right. How many of you guys have heard of Wyatt Earp? You do live in Kansas, yes? Okay. All right. You need to watch more Westerns, people, okay? Now, you heard of Dodge City, right? Dodge City, Kansas? That used to be the Wild West. I'm not kidding, right? And they would have gunplay. I mean, it was like people shooting each other, and it was nuts. So they hired Wyatt Earp, a lawman, to come out to Dodge City and clean it up. And he put a sign outside the city limits. All guns will be surrendered to the sheriff upon entering Dodge City. You get them back when you leave. But we're not going to have this gunplay in our city anymore. Did that infringe on your right to keep and bear arms, that law? It did. Guys, we have hundreds of gun laws. Let me give you two. You can't buy a handgun until you're 21. And when you walk in the door of Bishop Carroll High School, there's a gun on the door with a line through it, yes? That's two laws that affect you at this school. One that affects me. Yes? So if a high school kid shows up at Bishop Carroll High School with a gun, how many laws have they broken? A handgun. Two laws. And then he starts shooting people. There's a law against murder. How many laws does that person violate? 3. Did those laws stop the commission of that crime? Do laws stop people from breaking laws? Speed limit laws, I violate every day. I'm a serial offender. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just telling you the truth. Now, whenever there's a big shooting in this country, people say we need more laws. Okay? How did that kid obtain that handgun? He broke a law. By coming to school, he broke a law. You could pass more laws. Which one would have stopped that? The only one that would have stopped that is total gun confiscation of the American people. Most of these mass shootings take place in gun-free zones because the perpetrator knows there's nobody there to stop them with a gun. While we're on this subject, pay attention. Active shooter. I know some in years past, your teachers talked to you about getting out of the building. The number one option if there's an active shooter in this school is to get out of the building as fast as you can. You understand? This is a good room to be in. If there's an active shooter in the 400 hallway, you go out that door, now not those stairs, that way, those stairs over there, right? Those stairs empty right into the front of the school, outside, yes? You don't have to go back into the hallway underneath. Follow me? Get out. Now, if there's an active shooter over here, this door, not that door, this door goes to Mrs. Lovelace's room. You go through that door, out her door, and out the atrium. Okay? There's a shooter in the atrium. You can go that way, out the front, or you can go that way. You follow me? But get out. Now, if there's multiple shooters in the school, around us, then we barricade and we fight. They try and come in here, I'll have that desk right there, and whoever that is going to get a face full of it. Right? Best option, get out. And you should think about that for every class you're in, where you are if you need to get out. It's the easiest way to get out of the building. It's the best option. And fast. Don't walk, run. You understand? It could be the difference between life and death. Okay? All right. So, yes, gun violence causes so much pain in this country for people. Yes? But do we have the right to defend ourselves with these weapons? Okay, well, let's find out. Because handguns are responsible for so many of these. Washington, D.C. and Chicago banned handguns in the city limits. This is back in the early 2000s. In 2005, there was a man named Heller that was sitting in his home in Washington, D.C. At night, somebody broke into his house with a gun. Heller was violating D.C. law. He had his own handgun in the house. He shot the intruder who had a gun. They arrested Heller, the homeowner. For owning a gun in the city limits. So he sued the District of Columbia. This went all the way to the Supreme Court. Guys, this is the first time the Supreme Court has really ruled on guns since the 1920s. And they said that law in Washington, D.C. that said Heller cannot own a handgun is unconstitutional. So Chicago and D.C. had to do away with their bans on handguns. Now, when you are 21, you can buy a handgun. When you're 18, you can buy a shotgun. If you're convicted of a felony in this country, you cannot own a gun. You cannot possess a gun. That could be a good law. Do you think any convicted felons are walking around Wichita right now with guns? You better believe it. Does that law prevent convicted felons from getting guns? And let's say you had a felony for, say, money laundering, which had nothing to do with guns or violence. Now you lose your right to own a gun for the rest of your life. Maybe that's not a good law. Some people want to see new laws, and this may make sense to you guys. Most crimes are not random. Most murders are by people that know each other. So if there's a case of domestic violence, some people want to see a law, if you're charged with domestic violence, that you lose your gun rights. So you're at the mall with your boyfriend, ladies, okay? You're hanging out at the mall with your boyfriend, and this beautiful girl walks by, and he's like, and you're like, what are you doing? You're the jealous type. What are you doing? And you start like pushing him and shoving him. You smack him. Somebody calls the cops. This is a domestic violence situation going on here at the mall. You need to get over here. I just saw this woman beat up this guy. Did you just lose your Second Amendment rights for the rest of your life? Now, there needs to be laws against people that are mentally unstable from getting these. There needs to be a list. There needs to be background checks, yes? Waiting periods, I don't like. Waiting periods, look, ladies, if you have an ex-boyfriend that's a stalker, that's the jealous type, and you begin to fear for your life because you started dating somebody else and this guy's like ravaging jealous, and you're afraid. If you got to wait 3 days, you go to buy a gun, I said, well, there's a 3-day waiting period. It may be too late. I don't know, guys. I mean, I know it's horrible. The United States is worse than any country in the world. You understand? It's bad. I'm trying to be fair here because there's a lot of people that die. You go to Chicago every weekend. You're lucky if it's under 50 people were shot in a weekend in Chicago. Chicago's more dangerous than Baghdad. And I'm not kidding. South side. I don't know what the answer is. We lose our truth, our God. We lose right and wrong. It's another symptom of that. This violence. You know what I mean? You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to. How many of you guys have guns at your house? Okay, this is Kansas. That is a majority. Yeah, I don't know. Look, total confiscation or do away with handguns. One of the major reasons they put this in was so that we could defend ourselves against our own government. You understand that, right? Because we do not defeat the British without guns. It doesn't happen. And if our government becomes so tyrannical, we will talk about this. Thomas Jefferson's words. You heard of Shays Rebellion? Okay? Whiskey Rebellion? Guys, look at Black Lives Matter protests or what happened at the Capitol. Guys, we have the right to protest our government. We don't have the right to break the law. You understand? Boston Tea Party in 1773, when they threw all those chests, over 200 chests of tea into the Boston Harbor, were they breaking the law? You better believe they were. Okay? We celebrate that. That's who we are. Yeah, I mean, that's who we are as a nation. We got to be able to defend ourselves from tyranny. So, the way this is worded, okay, if you think we should pass more gun laws, we need stricter gun regulations, say no. If you're like a big proponent of the Second Amendment and you don't want to see more laws, we have laws. We have hundreds of laws. We got enough laws. Then say yes. Okay, or you want fewer laws, say yes. Okay. It's a controversial topic, man. And these days, you know, the bodies aren't even cold yet. You know, and they're blaming the gun. The gun doesn't pull the trigger. Now, they banned guns in Britain, in London. You know the preferred method of killing people in London now is? And the numbers are way up. Stabbings. Okay? Look at the stabbing statistics. Acid is another nice thing that some people use to throw in people's faces, but that's more of your kind of your radical people. But no, stabbings. Okay? The murder rate in London has not gone down since they got rid of guns. People are just using a different tool. I'm not making that up. You can look that up. Okay? Now, in some societies like Australia, it's kind of worked. But they'll never be able to defend themselves from their government. Okay? If you guys want to give up that, that's up to you. Okay? I mean, I don't think the law, this is me personally thinking, I don't think new law, I believe in background checks. I believe that we should not let convicted violent felons own a gun. I believe that we should not let the mentally unstable, but that's a slippery slope because, like, if you look at depression in this country, the number of people that have been diagnosed with depression in the last 10 years, if you're diagnosed with depression, maybe you don't allow them to own guns. Well, guys, you're going to be looking at 25% of the population. And why are so many people depressed? I don't know. Maybe because they don't believe in God. Some of them. I know there are some people that believe in God that get depressed. I'm not just, you know. And it is a sickness. It's, you know, I mean, I care about that. I'm not trying to be flippant. Okay? You guys have a great weekend. Okay? I think I did.
I don't know if you like did it.
I did.